I'm Jim Bell. I'm a professor in the School of Earth and Space Exploration at Arizona State University. Any Sun Devils in the house? Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. I am super, super happy to be here. There is so much amazing stuff going on in tech here in the Valley. When you think of this great nation's most incredible brand for high tech, for the frontier of science, engineering, and exploration, when you think of that, what word comes to mind? NASA. NASA, right? And we are so fortunate to have some great reps from NASA here tonight. We're going to have a little panel meeting. Why don't I call them? Why don't you guys come on up? Where are they? Where's the tape? There. Sorry, I have bright lights. Panelists should come up here, take your seats, and we have a little video to start with to get you up to date on what's going on with NASA, and then we're going to have a great panel discussion, so stay tuned. Go ahead and roll the video.
50 years ago, we pioneered a path to the moon. The trail we blazed cut through the fictions of science and showed us all what was possible.
It's very pretty out here.
Today, our calling to explore is even greater. To go farther, we must be able to sustain missions of greater distance and duration. We must use the resources we find at our destinations. We must overcome radiation, isolation, gravity, and extreme environments like never before. These are the challenges we face to push the bounds of humanity. We're going to the moon to stay by 2024, and this is how.
This all starts with the ability to get larger, heavier payloads off-planet and beyond Earth's gravity.
For this, we designed an entirely new rocket.
The Space Launch System. SLS will be the most powerful rocket ever developed.
And with components in production
and more in testing,
this system is capable of being the catalyst for deep space missions.
We need a capsule
that can support humans from launch
through deep space and return safely back to Earth.
For this, we've built Orion.
This is NASA's next-generation human space capsule.
Using data from lunar orbiters that continue to reveal the moon's hazards and resources,
we're currently developing an entirely new approach to landing and operating on the moon.
Using our commercial partners to deliver science instruments and robotics to the surface, we are paving the way for human missions in 2024.
Our charge is to go quickly and to stay, to press our collective efforts forward with a fervor that will see us return to the moon in a manner that is wholly different than 50 years ago.
We want lunar landers that are reusable,
that can land anywhere on the lunar surface. The simplest way to do so is to give them a platform in orbit around the moon from which to transition.
An orbiting platform to host deep space experiments and be a waypoint for human capsules. We call this lunar outpost Gateway.
The beauty of the Gateway is that it can be moved between orbits.
It will balance between the Earth and Moon's gravity,
in a position that is ideal for launching even deeper space missions.
In 2009, we learned that the moon contains millions of tons of water ice.
This ice can be extracted and purified for water. It can be separated in oxygen for breathing or hydrogen for rocket fuel.
The moon is quite uniquely suited
to prepare us and propel us to Mars and beyond.
This is what we're building.
This is what we're training for.
This we can replicate throughout the solar system.
This is the next chapter of human space exploration.
Humans are the most fragile element of this entire endeavor, and yet we go for humanity. We go to the moon and on to Mars to seek knowledge and understanding and to share it with all. We go knowing our efforts will create opportunities that cannot be foreseen. We go because we are destined to explore and see it with our own eyes. We turn towards the moon now, not as a conclusion, but as preparation, as a checkpoint toward all that lies beyond. Our greatest adventures remain ahead of us. We are going.
We're going.
We are going.
We are going. We're going.
Mr. Wozniak, would you please join us on the stage here as well? Please welcome Woz, everybody. All right, just some real brief introductions, and then we'll get our panel discussion started. On my left is Dr. James Green, Jim Green, the chief scientist of NASA, the #1 science guy at all of NASA, right here. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
To his left, in the moving chairs here, of course, you know Woz, innovator, technologist, philanthropist, educator. Awesome. I haven't actually met you tonight. Good to see you, man. Kind of a fanboy. Sorry. I'm going to ask him to sign my SE30 later. Welcome. To his left, Lindy Elkins-Tanton, who's a fellow professor at ASU, space innovator, and the lead of ASU's Psyche mission to visit a metal asteroid. Way to go, Lindy. Welcome. To her left, NASA's senior advisor to the administrator, Jim Bridenstine, Randy Cruz, and an accomplished naval aviator, 400 aircraft carrier landings. Amazing. Welcome, Randy. And finally, to his left, Arizona's favorite NASA son, Jeff DeWit, Chief Financial Officer, former treasurer of the state of Arizona. And so he's the money guy at NASA. Welcome, Jeff. So we're here to just kind of have a freewheeling conversation, right? To talk about what NASA's doing in tech for the country, and what NASA's doing in tech for Arizona. Of course, we care a lot about Arizona. And one of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about at ASU is public-private partnerships. I lead an initiative where we establish relationships between faculty, staff, and students in commercial space. Lindy leads another initiative where she's thinking about the future of human exploration in space, lots of commercial interactions going on there. So I want to just, let's open it up. Let's start with thinking about, how is NASA establishing those public-private cooperative partnerships that are going to lead us into the future. Maybe, Randy, you'd be best to start with that one.
All right, so for the public-private partnerships, we'll talk about that. What I really want to address as well is the commercialization of what we're doing. So as you saw with the video, we have some technical difficulties. What we're learning is that space is hard. President Kennedy said that years ago, and it still exists today. And we at NASA have done so many things, and we're realizing that we don't need to invest in the things that we've already done. For example, going to the space station. Space station's been floating around since the year 2000. For the last 19 years, there have been people living off the surface of this planet for 19 years continuously. And we've been that's right. We've been able to get our astronauts at the space station with the space shuttle, and then in 2011, we stopped. We've been flying our astronauts with the Soyuz rockets out of Russia, but we realized that technology exists. We've figured that out, but NASA doesn't need to invest in that anymore. So we opened it up to industry. How do we get our astronauts back to the space station? More importantly, how do we get American astronauts on American rockets launching from American soil? So we've opened it up to industry. Companies like SpaceX and Boeing are on contract to do that now. And within a year, we're going to have that happen. We're getting pretty close. SpaceX and Boeing are moving along. SpaceX has already had a demo where they've launched uncrewed. They've had a person, if you will, named Riley, that they put in there. Successfully went up to the space station, landed, docked, and came back successfully. Boeing is on contract to do their demo here shortly as well. We're moving. We're realizing that NASA, as we lean forward in innovation, we don't need to invest in things that we've already done, but we need to open it up to industry. The space station, for example, we talk about public-private partnerships and commercialization. We're opening that up. There is a lot of technology, there's a lot of research that can be done on the space station. For example, we're learning that in this microgravity environment, we're able to do things we can't do on Earth. We're able to layer these lenses for macular degeneration that we can't do on Earth. We're able to do it there. That's just one example of the many things, and some things we haven't even thought of yet, that we could be doing that. And that's opened up to industry, into public partnerships.
Cool. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Or?
So, there's another element of that. we're working with a variety of companies to go to the moon. We have 9 partners we've identified, and in the next couple of years, they'll be taking NASA instruments, landing on the moon, and we'll be doing a variety of science analysis. And we'll also be scouting out the area, the south pole of the moon, which is the targeted area for our landing in the future. In 2024, we'll have the first woman and the next man walking on the surface of the moon. So that's partly going to be done by working with commercial sector.
Nice, nice. Those are great points. And you know, the brand attracts kids so much. I've often thought if you could figure out a way to combine space, dinosaurs, and bugs, oh my gosh, you'd have the most amazing educational program. But you know, you don't see people walking around the airport with Transportation Security Administration shirts or IRS shirts, right? What are they wearing? They're wearing NASA shirts. We saw a young man over here with a NASA shirt earlier, right?
Don't forget the IRS usually takes your shirt.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, money guy. Yes. All right. Anything else to add on public-private partnerships, Jeff?
Yeah, you know, if you look at, like you said, the space station, for kids right now, by the way, there is a kid. Zeno, over here, stand up, show him your NASA shirt. We have a kid here. We don't know him. This wasn't a setup. We got to take a picture with him wearing a NASA shirt. Great job.
I think the IRS shirts got taken off their backs.
That's right. Think about this. For anybody that just graduated high school, like Randy pointed out, anyone who just graduated, they've never known life without somebody living and working in space. For 19 years, continuously living and working in space. And by the way, tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, tomorrow morning is going to be the first ever all-female spacewalk, which will be big news by tomorrow night, so look for that. That's happening tomorrow morning at the space station. We timed it just for you to make that happen. But I got to go in June, I got to go to the DesTechAZ and announce a really big rollout of the fact that we've opened up the space station now to private companies to come and do their research there. So, and we developed a cost. We said, okay, believe it or not, it's about $52,000 a night, and you can have a private researcher. And I did say that, I'll say now, it doesn't come with any Hilton Marriott points. But you can have a private researcher now on the space station doing commercial research. It does cost about $70 million to get there, but $52,000 fine, you can be on there. But now we're going to see these things now. We have Adidas talking about they've actually made some sample shoes where the NBA athletes can bounce. It's like 20% more bounce in the sole because they made it in a microgravity environment. Now it's $500 a shoe, but if you're an NBA player, that's not a big cost if you're going to jump on it. You know, so we're looking at these commercial partnerships now, these commercial products. We're going to help the U.S. economy grow in every way we can and look at these partnerships.
If I could real quick, I'm glad I wore that shirt because I just had to put this out there. How many NASA commercials have you ever seen? None. NASA doesn't market itself. Technology does it for us. Right? And the technology is part of stuff that you guys are doing just as well. And you can be involved in the things we're doing. We talk about expanding the things that we're doing, opening the industry. The door's wide open. You're welcome to join.
We got to talk about this from the other point of view too. Here's NASA talking about how you reach out and you make these private-public partnerships. But what we're doing here in Arizona, what we're all doing, people in this room and here at the university, is reaching in the other direction. We are uniquely great at bringing together university, government, and private sector organizations, doing the kind of impedance matching. And getting us to do those partnerships together from the other side. And so that's something we're really good at here in Arizona. I think we can lead in that sector.
Cool. Next topic is about sort of how does NASA and the technology, science, and NASA, how does it affect our everyday lives? We get public talks, we're interacting with school kids all the time, we're constantly thinking about the benefits of the space program. You know, I'm always kind of stunned when somebody walks up to me. It's like, I don't need the space program. I have GPS on my phone. No. So you know, and NASA has please everybody stop using Tang as the trickle down. Okay, that's not it anymore. Okay, that worked a while back, but it is so much more. So let's talk about what is it that NASA brings to everybody across the country, around the world, that's a great benefit to the space program? Start with you. Go for it.
Well, NASA's been involved in so many things that I can think of. The concept of bringing your atmosphere in your suit has allowed us to do a variety of research that enables us to work in life sciences in no other way. Pacemakers that are put in, your heart, the ability for us to monitor respiration in cancer problems, lung cancer problems. The concept of developing a variety of drugs on a space station that are pure, that we then can use, that are more effective. So it happens in all our lives every day.
Cool. I actually I'm going to ask you this question. So, were you inspired by NASA in some way when you were younger? And
More than inspired, my whole career was kind of set up by we had the space race to get to space ahead of the Soviets, but we also had rockets and missiles had to be designed with navigation systems because of the atomic fears back then. And I lived in a place now called Silicon Valley where they were making these tiny little parts, the first little chips with 6 transistors on them, because it saved, if you saved a fraction of a gram back then, it saved a lot of money in launching a rocket. And you mentioned GPS on your phone. I would think that NASA had at least some role in developing the rocketry that led to being able to put up the GPS satellites to begin with. That's very common in our lives.
Plus the images on the phone themselves, the camera themselves, were perfected by a variety of scientists looking down at the Earth and at planets, etc.
Yeah, and of course, NASA came about, and boy, was that an inspiration to those of us who were kind of already reading science books and watching science fiction movies and thinking I could be a pilot someday, that sort of thing. And then the accomplishments, the second most important television show of my life was landing on the moon.
What was the first?
The Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Nice.
You were a teenager.
Thank you. Randy, anything you want to add when you were advising the administrator about, the role of NASA in fueling the economy, inspiring people?
NASA is everywhere. And it's in places sometimes we don't even think about. I flew in last night, flew in this airplane, and I'm looking at this weird, on the engine, there's like this jagged looking thing around the nacelle. Well, that's designed so that it's not as noisy for the folks on the ground, developed by NASA. You look at the different wings, and you see that the wingtips are curled at the edges. That's to make it more efficient. NASA's focus is to improve the human condition. For those of you that ate salads tonight, I'm not sure where that came from, but in California last year they had their annual agricultural convention. It's huge. We talked about how improving the human condition. The satellites that we have in space that can look down on the Earth and measure the humidity and temperature that's happening on the surface of the Earth makes us farm smarter and more efficiently. Because of that, we're able to figure out how much water we really need, which is important because we're kind of running out of water. And 2, if you don't overwater the crops, that's less nitrates that gets pushed into our drinking source. So that's just farming. We talked about GPS and phones. We talked about banking. We talk about the value of Bitcoin. If we lose our GPS signal, our timing signal, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But all these things that NASA does and continues to do, NASA's everywhere.
I think the agency also inspires the nation, right? It's STEM, it's national pride, it's who else is landing rovers on Mars? Who else is sending spacecraft through the rings of Saturn? It's like we don't have to do this. We don't have to, but we choose to as a great nation, and great nations explore, and so I'm super proud that NASA's doing that. So let's talk about the budget a little bit, money guy. People may not know that NASA is less than 0.5% of the federal budget, but it's still of order $20 billion a year of your taxpayer dollars, our taxpayer dollars.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And so, Jeff, what can you tell us about what's being planned in the coming year, 2 years, as NASA pitches its budget to the rest of the government?
Well, you know, like you said, we're in a time right now where the administration wants us to do more and go to the moon here by 2024. We're planning in the 2030s, we will be landing. In our lifetimes, we will see human beings walk on the surface of Mars. We have missions. We have a mission next year called, I know it's great. They tell me I'm too big to fit in a spacesuit, so it won't be me. But we are getting more resources. If you go back to the 60s, the Apollo days, NASA was actually 4.5% of the federal budget. 4.5%. Like you said, right now we're 0.4% of the federal budget. But we are getting more resources to do more things. $21.5 billion is what we're operating a year right now. That's why, I don't know if you know, just the CFO's office alone, I have a staff of 2,300 people just to do all of the money across NASA for what we have, all the procurement, everything else we do. You know, if we do procurement at NASA, we can't go to Home Depot and buy screws. We have these special, really expensive screws that are a certain metal that's very light, that are hollow on the inside, they cost a fortune, everything we do. And you know, one of the things too, we have $1 billion, $1.02 billion goes into what's called STMD, and which is where we get our new technologies from, space tech and all these things. We have a program called NASA iTech, which goes out where we are looking for the same thing, these future technologies. We talk about the past and all the things that are in your life right now, from baby food, memory foam, all these are things that were created by NASA, solar cells, NASA. But you look at the future, we have 8 significant things we need, directives that we're looking for. We need ways to turn water. We found, and Jim Green talked about, on the poles of the moon right now, there are hundreds of millions of tons of water ice. And we're looking for technology right now that can turn that into hydrogen and oxygen to crack it remotely on the moon. So we don't have to, because right now, when we go to the moon, we have to bring all our fuel with us that gets us back. But if we can take advantage of the resources that are there, the water that's there, and create, if you ever watch the space shuttle take off, it's a white smoke behind, because the tanks are hydrogen and oxygen tanks, liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen. It makes water. That's what's actually coming out of the back of that is water. So we crack it into rocket fuel while we're there. Now we can bring a lot more science, a lot more things up there if we don't have to take the fuel to get us back. So I always say, if you look at the rocket program the way it's been, when we don't have reusability and you're not using resources, imagine if you flew here from New York and you have to go back. But to get here, you're gonna bring the airplane here. You have to bring all your own fuel and everything, and the food while you're here, everything. And then when you go back, you throw away the 747 or whatever you brought. That's NASA right now. We're looking at ways to do reusability. We're using to use the resources we can find. But NASA iTech right now, the program, we've had 60 companies go through our NASA iTech program to look at these future technologies. The top 10, the winners right now, have raised $580 million after they went through the program in the venture capital markets to grow, because once you get that NASA stamp approval and you get in that game, and you look at Arizona, and one of my passions is to still see Arizona do well. I got elected state treasurer in the same election that Doug Ducey went from state treasurer to governor, and I had a front row seat for the first 3.5 years of this administration, watching the growth and what we've done for business. And Governor Ducey's done a great job at reducing regulation and growing the business sector, growing the jobs, 300,000 jobs. We are number 4 already, Arizona, in aerospace and defense in the country. Number 4. We get over $10 billion a year. Over $10 billion a year comes into Arizona in aerospace and defense. And what a lot of people don't know, I didn't know the extent until I got to NASA too, is of all the states, the best university partners that we have, and there are over 78 different aerospace degrees at our Arizona universities, but our Arizona universities, U of A, ASU, NAU, Embry-Riddle, which is is the top in the country, are right here in Arizona. We had an Embry-Riddle over there. I like it. And so these are ways the Arizona economy has been growing and expanding, and we want to do that. We want to partner with these firms. I love the firm that won. My wife was here for your pitch, and she was showing me the different training and all that stuff. It looks wonderful. The training in government is still these dusty big books plunked on your desk. So we need to talk. And I will tell you the other partnership that I came up with tonight, which is, how great would this be when the astronauts land on Mars, think about this, and the door opens, and they ride out on an Orange County Chopper's Mars bike. So Paul Tuttle, you're one of my heroes, along with Wozniak. Love you guys. Let's talk. We need a Mars bike.
They are totally on it. Totally on. Jim, you want to say a few words about how does NASA spend that $20 billion? What's it go into? What's the return?
Well, right now we're planning a major campaign to go forward to the moon. We don't like to say return to the moon. And that campaign allows us to have the scientists work closely with our engineers to really go to places on the moon where we need that information. The history of the solar system is on the surface of the moon. The moon has all kinds of resources that we're finding out. Not only do we have this enormous amount of water trapped in the poles in these areas that don't get sunlight, but we also find precious group metals all over the moon. Now, where did they come from? They come from asteroids that have been hitting the moon. And for us to understand them, we need to go to them. We need to, with Psyche, Lindy's mission, go there, study it, and understand what these materials are like, how did they come about, and that's a part of the evolution of the solar system.
Cool. I like. Let's keep talking about the NASA Arizona connection, and you introduced Lindy's mission. So this woman here, one of my role models, is bringing $1 billion through Arizona for this amazing, incredible mission of exploration. She is the leader of this mission. Tell us more about what is Psyche. Some people may not have heard of the mission, and tell us about it.
I don't know if this. Oh, is this on? All right, great. Sorry, we have a plethora of microphones here, so sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, Psyche mission. This is our next Arizona mission. So proud to be doing that here at ASU and with the people of Arizona. Exploration is a human imperative. It's in us. We have to go. We have to discover things. And to me, all the beautiful things that we've been talking about that NASA gives us, that's absolutely right. But I think the real thing that it gives us is inspiration. There are so many narratives out there right now that are fear narratives or guilt narratives or things that are just frightening out in the world. But if we think about ourselves as an interplanetary species where we can go onto the moon, where we can send robots, that's what we're doing with Psyche, send robots that fly through space for 10 years without anyone to take care of them, sending us information back. If we can do that, if we can put things together that are so complicated that no single person on the team can understand them, and they work flawlessly in space by themselves for a decade, then we can solve the problems that are here in front of us today. And to me, that is what a space future is for. So come with us on this exploration. This is not a crewed mission. We're sending a robotic spacecraft. Humans, all of us at NASA and around the world, we have sent spacecraft and people to rocky bodies. We've gone out to Mercury and to the moon with people, and the rest of it with robots, to Mars, which Jim does. He's been on every camera crew of every rover that's gone to Mars. And amazing, amazing. We've been to, yes. And by the way, just a little plug for my friend, read his books, they're awesome. We've been to planets that are made of gas and bodies that are made of ice, but we have never yet been to a body that's made of metal. And we think this asteroid we're going to, the name of the asteroid is Psyche, like the goddess. We named the spacecraft, the mission, Psyche, after what we're going to. We think it's mostly made of metal. This is a whole new kind of object that humans have never seen. And from here, it's just a speck of light. But in 2022, in August, we're going to launch. And we're going to fly out through space for 3.4 years, and we're going to go to the asteroid belt, and we're going to find out what this thing is because we can. And we're going to do it here out of Arizona with the help of our friends from NASA.
Awesome. Awesome. You guys, chopper guys, metal world. Metal world. Yes. Yes. I also should mention the spectacular project being done out of University of Arizona down in Tucson called OSIRIS-REx. This is a spacecraft that is now in orbit around a really small asteroid that comes close to the Earth, and they're going to touch down, grab a piece of it, and bring a piece of that back to Earth so that we can all study it in our laboratories. Super primitive material. What are the planets made out of? It's building blocks, right? It's the Legos of the solar system. They're going to go grab a piece and bring it back, and our colleagues down at UA and Tucson are leading that mission. So that's another pretty spectacular
thing. Let me tell you one money thing on that mission, too.
Yes,
when I first got to NASA, one of my objectives, they tell you when you get there as a CFO, they say, hey, a lot of your programs overrun in cost and schedule, fix it. And so I ran an analysis of every program we've done. I went back to Space Station Hubble way back, And it's in all the bar charts of everything, how everything did, and there were just maybe a third of them in the green that had actually saved money, and 2/3 in the red, and some, the James Webb Space Telescope we're building right now is the worst we've ever done, and that's being built right now. But I'm not making this up, the #1 project that has come in under cost was OSIRIS-REx out of U of A.
Way to go.
The #1.
Way to go, UA. Nice.
And on schedule.
Okay, but let me mention something about this, because I was with O1B one day and we were talking about cost. I was head of planetary for 12 years. And, some of my missions were overrunning, and I said, who's building a kitchen? And one of them were building a kitchen. I said, is that on schedule? No. Is that is that in budget? No. I said, you know how many kitchens we build in the United States every day, and you can't stay on schedule and on budget? We build one-of-a-kind things like we've never done before, with the best ingenuity that we can possibly bring to the table, with the greatest scientists ever, and it's difficult to project the cost and the budget, and we're doing better than we've ever done before. So we're not going to get it all right, but those that we get right, we relish. Thanks, OSIRIS-REx, for the money savings.
Yeah, and look, in general, universities are a great place for NASA to invest their resources, right? Because it's cutting edge science, cutting edge engineering, and the student access is phenomenal. And it's workforce development, it's training the pipeline, but it's just inspiring these kids too to get into technical jobs, and so that's pretty spectacular. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about human exploration. Of course, right, NASA led us to the moon in the late 60s and early 70s. 50 years ago, right? We all celebrated Apollo 11 this past summer. What's coming up? What are the goals, and what can we expect as milestones? Maybe Randy, maybe you could start off on human exploration.
Absolutely. So, 50 years ago, I would ask for the crowd, if you were alive, women, don't raise your hand, men really. If you're alive July 20th, 1969, raise your hand. Yeah, you probably remember where you were when we landed on the moon. For those of you that didn't raise your hand, you don't have that memory. And I'm with you. We don't have that. What was the Apollo generation? We are now transitioning to what's called the Artemis generation. Who has not heard of Artemis? Oh, everyone's heard of Artemis? Okay, a couple people. Artemis, the book. Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. And Artemis is the name of the program that Jeff had talked about, of us going back to the moon with the first woman and the next man by 2024. That's what we're doing. And we're doing it differently. We're doing it with international and commercial partners. That includes you guys. We're going to create what's called a gateway, which is going to be this orbiting space station-like thing that's going to orbit the moon. And we're going to have human landing systems, which we just put out a broad agency announcement, i.e., if you want to bid and throw your company's name in the hat to build this thing, just came out. So it's open. These human landing systems are going to plug up to this gateway, and it's going to go up and down from the moon to find the resources these guys were talking about. And all of this is called the Artemis program. I wish we could have seen the video. My karaoke voice doesn't do it justice. William Shatner was talking on the other one. If we are able to play it later on, I encourage that we do. If not, it is on YouTube. It is called We Are Going.
Cool.
On that note too, again, we want commercial partners. And the reason we're bringing them in, it helps our dollars go further. International partners. So 3 weeks ago, Randy and I were in Tokyo, and we met with Toyota, who's building a prototype for the next moon rover, which was pretty cool. And we got to see that. So partnering even with Toyota now, which we never would have thought of 50 years ago. But they may build the next moon rover in partnership with JAXA, which is Japanese Exploration Agency, their version of NASA, who's been a great partner of ours. But international partners, everything else, is going to stretch the $21.5 billion they give us a lot further and help us do more.
And just so we're clear, we're going forward to the moon. We need to figure out how to live on the moon sustainably, because the end goal is to figure out how to live on Mars. That's the reason we're doing this. When we go to Mars, you're going to have to stay there for a little bit of a vacation. So we need to figure out how you got to do that. And we're going to use the moon as a proving ground so we can figure out how to do that safely. And if something happens, we can come back to Earth right away.
Yeah, so once again, this is why the South Pole is so important. because we have found this reserve of water, we want to be able to tap that, you know, and once again, break it apart, make rocket fuel, drink it. Okay, water is water, whether it's here or on the moon, it's still H2O. All right, and
maybe filter it first.
Well, we do that,
filter
yes,
it,
okay,
maybe.
so use your Brita. But bottom line on that is we also want to be able to breathe it, you know, break it apart and use the oxygen. So the water is a key ingredient that allows us to go there and use the resources. That is exactly what we have to do on Mars, the very first thing we have to do. And in fact, there's many water resources we believe on the Mars. Most recently, we've seen a buried glacier, an area in the mid-latitudes that's about the size of the state of Arizona, and in some places 750 meters thick, and it is the old pole of Mars with enormous amount of water. So we know that frozen water will be an asset to it. The places that we're looking at to land on Mars now, many of those are in and around that area. And we're going to learn to live and work on a planetary surface starting with the moon and do those things that we will do on Mars.
Cool. You know, it may not be obvious to people that there's water on the moon, right? The moon is not tilted on its axis like the Earth is, so at the poles there are deep holes in the ground, craters, and when a comet or an asteroid with water in it crashes into these craters, the sun never rises, it's always dark, that ice is there forever. And it's just waiting there for us to go and figure out how to get into it. It's super cold, we need new technologies to get in there, 20, 30, 40 degrees above absolute zero, like the coldest places in the solar system, not Pluto, it's planet Pluto, but the poles of the moon, right? Totally non-intuitive. But we need new technologies, new engineering to figure out how to get there. But that's the way to live off the land. Yep. The way to live off the land is to not have to bring all your resources from the Earth. Okay. I want to keep going a little bit more on this human exploration thread, right? And you know, what is it going to take to get us to Mars? What is the timescales? What do we need to prove out on the moon? A number of us at ASU are working with Arizona Science Center here on some simulation games, right? Having kids learn about STEM and engineering and math, and they simulate what it takes, how much air do we need every day? How much water do we need? What kind of food do we have to grow? And these are real problems that NASA's tackling, not just for the moon, but for the longer story out to Mars. Go ahead, Jeff.
You know, so one thing you're going to see next summer, you're going to see us launch what's called Mars 2020, which is going to go to Mars, and we're going to have a rover that drives around Mars, and it's going to collect in vials samples of the dirt from strategic locations, similar to what Jim Green just talked about in that area. We're going to collect samples, and then in 2026, we're going to launch something else called Mars Sample Return, which is going to go to Mars, get those vials, bring them back to Earth so we can look. If you look right now, we cannot say there isn't life on Mars. And Jim Green, I'm going to pass it to you in a minute because he made international news about 3 days ago with a comment you made, and you can tell everyone here. He got all over the worldwide news with a comment, so you can say that. But right now, they have methane cycles, just like we have on Earth. They have all the building blocks for life. We can rule out life on the moon. We cannot rule it out on Mars. And I will tell you, since you said the area we're going to go to is similar to Arizona, I'm going to tell you, as a previous statewide candidate who went everywhere in Arizona, that if it's like Arizona, when you get in the middle of nowhere there, the one thing you'll find is Waffle House. You will find.
Well, that would be great. I think we'd enjoy that.
Tell them what you said a few days ago.
Well, okay. So Curiosity and Spirit and Opportunity, the rovers that we've had there, have done a miraculous job teasing out information about Mars. And what we're finding out is that Mars was a blue planet. It looked like the Earth. At the time life started here on Earth 3.8 billion years ago, Mars had oceans, all right? And so it had a habitable environment. We now know that. We can tell from the rock record about the sediments that were occurring and how the rapidly moving water has rounded rocks and created conglomerates. And so the chemicals that we find are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Everything that's between my two fingers, okay? So those things of life are there, okay? But was there the spark? Was there that moment? That's what we don't know. But are we ready to really, this is where the controversy comes in. I'm not quite sure we're ready for the moment when we say, we have answered the question, we are not alone. And that question is, yes, life may be everywhere, not only in our solar system, but in the universe. That I'd like to see in my lifetime, and I believe we will see it. Everyone in this room will see it in their lifetime, because we're making enormous progress in that direction. This is the, let me tell you, our species is the first species that has the capability to leave this planet and explore the solar system. The solar system is ours. Let's take it.
You go, Brother Jim. Yes. Yeah, and Jeff, of course, all the media heard was burp, 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 life on Mars. Burp, 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 burp.
And that's why it was worldwide news.
Yes. Exactly.
All right, but we got to say, we are ready. We're ready right now to know that. And one of the amazing things we did at the university over the last couple of years is we did a gigantic linguistic analysis of how people have reacted to the incorrect stories of the discovery of life off of the Earth. And it turns out people are ready. People feel good about it. We're ready.
Yeah, I mean, look at how many planets are being discovered around other stars. Look at how many other possibly tens of millions of Earth-like planets in our galaxy alone, hundreds of billions of galaxies. I mean, I agree. I think we are ready. Let's talk a little bit more about NASA and tech here in Arizona. Maybe, Lindy, you can tell us a little bit more about the kinds of NASA projects that go on at ASU and what kinds of investments in science are coming out across campus. Go for it.
It's something that we're really, really proud of in Arizona. I wonder how many of you realized before tonight how active we are in aerospace in Arizona. Some of you, I know you live it, but I bet a lot of you hadn't really thought about it too much. I mean, Arizona's about real estate and citrus and cattle and things like that. But it turns out we're also about exploring our solar system. It's quite amazing. At Arizona State University, did you know that we're involved right now in 22 active space missions? Did you know that? It's pretty amazing. Yeah. And part of the purpose of doing this is inspiring students to think about tech, inspiring students to feel like they can be a part of it, that the story of being an astronaut is no longer an untouchable hero, but space is for everyone. We can all use our chips. We can all learn to code. We can all think about making things with our hands. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your skin color is or what your gender is. It's there for all of us to participate in. And we're working every day at ASU to put together new educational initiatives that really make it accessible for everyone to try to do this kind of thing. We've got a new major that we just had approved 2 weeks ago called Technological Leadership. The purpose of this major is to train students how to solve problems in teams. Content is everywhere. What isn't everywhere is training people the process of how you work with other people to solve problems. And we're doing that using space as the inspiration. And that's one of the ways that we're connecting and reaching out and doing more.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, that's spectacular. I mean, the goal is to go beyond the giant dusty book that plops down on your desk, right? It's to go beyond book learning. We listen to companies, right? We listen to what the industry wants, needs of their future workforce, and we try to gear ourselves away from of course, the theoretical is great, the foundation is important, but what are the practical the skills that the people, coding, tinkering, building, chips and robots, et cetera. Woz, you're a California dude, right? What brought you to Arizona? What was it that attracted you here, and what keeps you here in the tech sector?
Well, what brought me, I had two big interests in my life until my dad in 6th grade. I'm going to be an electrical engineer like you, and second, I'm going to be a 5th grade teacher. And the education was very important to me my whole life. I did wind up teaching in the public schools for 8 years, just about full-time 5th to 9th graders, young kids. And no press allowed. That's why you might not have heard about it. I didn't want press near kids. And so education, and I've been looking into, sometime I'm so interested in technology education and online, and can it be done a little differently than it has been? And then I met up with the group here in Phoenix that's had success with their own private schools or private universities, and they wanted to do a technical one and to have my name attached to technology and education. That's why. That's one good reason I'm here. And all my life I've had a fondness for this area. Different companies, going back Motorola and others. Goes back a long time.
It's sort of.
And ASU. Here's ASU. The 22,000 engineering students. Is it still that high? I mean, that's a big. They were #1 in the country not too long ago.
Yep. Graduating 5,000 engineers a year. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. With enrollment. And
we need them.
Yes, they're going to head to NASA and SpaceX and Blue Origin and Virgin and all the up and down the supply chain for the tech sector. Absolutely. And there's something.
If I can say Arizona real quick too, I can say as a former state treasurer and everything else, and we go around, we do panels. I've been in other states. I've spoken around. There is no other state that is as welcoming to the tech sector and to innovation and to entrepreneurship as Arizona is right now. Honestly, this is the only place where the governor comes and kicks off the ceremony. I mean, it's a great state for that. If you look at who's in this crowd right now, we have a whole bunch of mayors. I'm sitting next to the Mayor Chandler over here. Kevin, there you go. A lot of our top business people are here. This is a very welcoming place. Everyone's here. I mean, forget Wozniak to come here too. Amazing. But I'm telling you, with the business environment, with the low taxes, the low regulation, everything going here, there is no better state for a new company to start and grow than Arizona. There really isn't.
Yeah, and there's something that is sort of, maybe it's just built into all of us. I mean, we would not be able to live here without technology, right? And maybe we all have a special appreciation for that, especially in June, July, and August. Yeah, come back, you guys, in June, July, and August. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So let's. Are we getting close? Getting close. One more topic, or wrap it up? Or I think we're going to wrap. Any closing comments folks want to make? We'll go down the line. Say a few.
Well, I've just had a wonderful time being here, meeting new people. That's always very important to me. Arizona, as I mentioned, I was head of planetary science for 12 years. We have the largest group of planetary scientists in this state, and they're all dear friends of mine. So thank you very much for the warm welcome.
I have a number of NASA connections that aren't known. Of course, I've been to space shuttle launches and rocket launches and even a landing of a Mars rover. I was at JPL with my son. He worked for NASA right out of college. I worked at another NASA division. His friend still works there. And so I've had, and it's just always meant that much to me, the high end of science. But when you're trying to do new things that have never been done before, it's not so easy as, here's something we just know how to do and we just go and do it real quickly. No, you have to study everything and take care and test over and over. And it is so hard. You strain yourself. It's unbelievably how long it takes to make things work reliably, which it has to be 99.999%, with NASA projects, and to do something that's never been done before, break new science ground. So that's intriguing to me. Secondly, I like education and a little bit of humor, so I'm going to propose one little question to the audience, which is the pull of gravity about the same on the space station as it is on Earth, or is it about 0 in the space station?
Trick question.
It's about the same as on Earth. Yeah. Because we're like 4,000 miles from the center of the Earth that's pulling us down at a certain rate based on our weight. And the space station's only about 4,100 miles up, 150 miles up. So it's not that much different, the pull. You just don't feel it because you're falling constantly.
Free fall.
Yeah, free fall when you're in orbit.
Lindy, any last comment?
Just thank you to DesTechAZ for helping us all lead the way into our positive space future.
Randy?
So to DesTech, thank you for inviting us. I've never been to Arizona before. I work with Jeff all the time. He's like, you've got to come. And it's been a blast. I've enjoyed it. I'm delighted to meet as many people, and I'm looking forward to meeting the rest of you as well. Join us, as Lindy said, in this exploration effort. It is all about improving the human condition, and we could all do that together with the technology expertise that we have here in Arizona. Thank you.
And Governor DeWit, Treasurer DeWit.
I'll just give my pro-Arizona message. I'll tell you, so I don't know if you guys all know, everyone thinks we were in Houston or Florida. I was here a state or a city. NASA headquarters is in Washington, D.C. When Congress gives you as much money as they give us, they want to keep you right under the nose. You could walk to the Capitol from NASA headquarters. So when people ask me, what do I think of the job? How do I like it? My line, I always say, and it's very true, I said, I love the job, I hate the location. I said, if this job was in Arizona, I would stay there forever because NASA is so wonderful. But I will tell you, it's great to be back with all of you. The Arizona economy is booming. It's going to keep booming. And I really hope that we can work together to inspire some of these companies to go further and farther with us. So, and it's great to be back. Thank you.
So, thank you. So, you know, NASA, #1 brand in the world for technology, innovation, frontier, science, engineering, and they are tight with Arizona. So take advantage of that in your country, in your company, in your school, in your neighborhood, whatever. Let's thank our NASA colleagues and ASU colleagues and WAS for a great panel discussion. Thank you all. Thank you.